Open by passing along a statistic that Mike Milken shared with me a couple weeks ago. There are 30,000 known human diseases. We have treatments for only 10,000. I'd be willing to make a couple of bets about the people in this room. First, I'd wager that we all agree on the massive unmet need for new treatments for disease. There's still a lot of work to be done. But it also means there are a lot of opportunities. The thousands of people at this meeting represent the major stakeholders in the therapeutics development process. We run the gamut of public and private funders, researchers, patients, pharma, and biotechs. Here's a second bet. Every single one of us would say we're working as urgently as we can to steer our resources towards developing new therapies. It's just not that easy to do. In fact, you could look at the whole drug development pipeline as a big game of Texas Hold'em. You're dealt a few cards and you have to make a bet based on how promising your hand looks. With each new card you're dealt, you get a little more information. And of course, you have to put more money on the table. Big money. And the stakes get exponentially higher with each round. The stakes get so high, in fact, that the game can take on a life of its own. But of course, that depends on your appetite for risk and potential payoff. By the way, how obvious is it that I just got back from Vegas? Dale Ray got robbed, by the way. But listen, the pot is significant. And it's hard to know which hands are worthy of doubling down on. But all this boils down to how do we define winning? Answering this question may be one of our greatest challenges. What does achieving success, winning, mean to each of us and our organizations? The drug development process is a constantly changing environment. Access to capital waxes and wanes, and the industry's risk appetite shifts. All of us do the best we can with the cards we're dealt, placing our bets and trying to maximize value as we see fit. I'd like to take a crack at explaining how I define success in the drug development process. Let's start at the beginning of the research pipeline, where you have government's huge investment in discovery, funded mainly through NIH grants. In this system, success means more NIH grants, ongoing funding for a lab. NIH grantees are typically academic scientists, brilliant, well-intentioned researchers. But to guarantee additional funding, they must publish and secure tenure. And a publish-or-perish system encourages exploring elegant questions whose answers are intellectually interesting, but often low risk. It favors basic research over clinical, a far cry from the out-of-the-box flyers that are the hallmark of truly innovative results, translating discovery into new treatments. American taxpayers are funding the greatest discovery engine in the world, yet we fail to provide incentives for our scientists to convert their relevant findings into improvements in human health. At the other end of the research pipeline, the commercialization end, there's an even larger pool of capital controlled by pharma and biotech companies and their backers. We understand that a company's measure of success is shareholder profit. To many companies, this means IP positions or patentable assets offering potential markets in the billions of dollars. Look, I get it. That's why we've hired business leaders to run our foundation. We're realistic about how for-profit companies are incented to compete. But we hear from small companies involved in the earliest pre-stage clinical work that investors have little appetite for the high-risk studies necessary to really determine whether an idea has value or not. It seems that more and more industry capital is focused on repurposing ideas and compounds that have been kicking around for years. Again, I get it, but here's a question. Who's funding genuine innovation today? Levodopa is the gold standard treatment for Parkinson's, the disease I live with. Don't get me wrong, I love my meds. L-dopa helps patients manage some of the symptoms, not all, and only for some period of time. I may be luckier than most. I've been reasonably well treated with available drugs for over 15 years. But it is a little frustrating that the best drug we've got is one that's been around for 40 years. 40 years. And away from some tweaking here and there, PD patients are still faced with tough choices and no current treatment that can actually modify the course of the disease. Do we need another dopamine agonist? But hey, credit where credit is due. There are a lot of innovations happening. One that comes to mind is an antidepressant for dogs, which makes things a little easier for me. I mean, my symptoms may not be getting better, but my dog feels better about it. Seriously, it's cool. But let's add it all up. Between government and commercial investments in medical research, we're talking $100 billion a year pumped into the drug discovery process. That is a boatload of money. Yet there is much talk about where to find more money for these endeavors. I'd argue that filling the unmet need of patients all across all diseases isn't about more money. It's about spending money more effectively. And although it's modest in comparison, add to that $100 billion another couple of billion in private philanthropic capital, donated largely by patients themselves. Here's a group with a compelling interest in speeding up the development of new therapies. Yet these funders too could raise their bar for giving, which is too often dominated by the grateful patient effect, a predisposition to fund one's own doctors out of gratitude, loyalty, or lack of other perceived options. The tough truth is that the research pipeline, the therapeutic development system, breaks down in the exact spot where we need it to work the hardest, the place where it should be strategically driving the higher risk, higher reward work of converting basic discoveries into new therapies. We're failing to incent the high-risk innovators who could really make a significant difference more quickly. Looking around this room, filled with an incredible reserve of brain power, scientific prowess, and excellent intentions, I've got to ask, how can we get this right? Because I can't help thinking about the cost of failing to get it right. The importance of these outcomes can't be measured only on a corporate balance sheet or by being featured on the cover of Science or Nature. You have to measure it in patients' lives. I'm not naive. I'm not wringing my hands. I'm not here to plead. I appreciate that my being here today talking to you from a patient perspective by itself doesn't change the factors that go into your investment decisions. And I'm not expecting a groundswell of newfound interest in PD research. But it seems to me that regardless how each of us separately defines a winning hand, we can all achieve success by redeploying our resources creatively and strategically in ways that benefit everyone. Our foundation and a handful of like-minded, proactive disease groups stand ready to work with you. But I'm sure that you understand we do measure the return of our investment differently from other stakeholders. I'm here today to make the point that we think translation requires a new kind of stakeholder. We hope to help bridge the gap between value and effectiveness, because it creates a win-win for all participants. And we're focused on finding ways to change the game so that you get to turn some of the cards over earlier, where the antes are smaller, and you can afford to fold without losing your shirt. Circling back to the poker table, we're in a high-stakes game, and although you don't often see this in Vegas, our foundation is working to improve the players' odds. For patients like me, thirsty patients, the goal is for everybody to win. We want to work with companies that have exciting ideas at various stages of development, from target validation to phase 2. We'd rather put $200,000 in the pot early on if it will help answer crucial questions about drug targets. This in turn may reduce the risk and increase the odds of an industry player investing $10 million in a promising treatment down the line. We're continually looking for new ways to custom fit promising ideas with whatever resources we can provide, financial, scientific, collaborative, or otherwise. This is better for you. It can also help benefit patients. In 2006, across 7 different grant programs, we made a total of $7.5 million in commitments to 16 companies, a number we expect to grow this year. Our foundation has funded industry since we awarded our first grants in 2001, but last year we took it to the next level. We launched the Therapeutics Development Initiative, our first program open exclusively to industry researchers, just to hammer